And I can't, oh, thank you. We are recording this session, as you all could hear. So I can't see everybody who's out there, but if there's anybody out there from the community who wants to make a public comment before we start the main event of the evening, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you. And welcome, Emily. Glad to see you here too. Okay. Well, I think that we'll just jump into the regular meeting then, if that's okay with everybody. Jen, you agree?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we all know why we're here. Dr. Donnelly has agreed to come here tonight and introduce all of you to all of us. Some faces are familiar faces, maybe with new positions or expanded positions or different titles or whatever. And some people are just new to the district, and we want to welcome you all. So we don't have to spend a lot of time. This is really Paula's event and your event. All of you who are here, thank you to the team chairs and to Emily for being here. And Paula, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you. So thank you for having us. I actually extended the invitation to the entire Student Services Department, so it is nice to see a few other familiar faces here. I know that the primary purpose of this was to introduce our new staff, but I know, every year, you get a largely new team. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and let the Student Services Building-Based Administrators just introduce themselves very briefly. And we'll just go in grade order. So Meredith, I'll let you go first.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here. So as you or many of you may know, the past couple of years, I've been in a variety of different chair positions throughout the district and excited to be taking over the full pre-K to 3 band at this point. So both Lover and now officially Brown. So was a variety of smaller schools. And of course, now we have our beautiful new building. So very excited to be working with everybody and to help align our pre-K to 3 programming.
Thank you.
All right, and Carol at Village.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Donnelly. I'm the new team chair at Village School. So far, I've been made to feel very welcome. It's a wonderful place to work. Prior to Marblehead, I worked at Salem Public Schools for 12 years, working pre-K to post-high and all the different sub-separate programs and inclusion. In various roles, various administrative roles and teaching roles. And before that, I worked at Landmark School in Beverly, working as a teacher and then an administrator in the early lit department, where we worked with the LIPS program to teach kids how to read. And I'm just glad to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Liebman. I am at the middle school in Marblehead. This is my second year as the chairperson there. Previous to that, I'd been in the district about 10 years in different capacities, teaching and as an instructional coach. So it's nice to see you all, and it's great to be back this year.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leah Feldman. I am the team chair at the high school. I was the speech therapist at the high school last year. Before that, I was the SLP at Village. And before that, I worked in Natick for a while. So I recognize some of these names from, my experience this past year and before that. And hello to everybody.
Thank you.
Emily, your turn. Even if you're not a new face.
I'm not a new face. I'm Emily Dean. I am the Associate Director of Student Services. And this is my 3rd year in this role, though, as Meryl says, I've got a new title this year, but I'm doing the same job. I'm so excited to have, I won't even make my jokes about it, but I'm so excited to be back. No, I think so. Dr. Donnelly and I have a running joke about who does what. And I don't think it's very often that someone comes into a role like this and truly finds that it's fun for them and they enjoy it and they enjoy working with their families. So if you encounter me, it's probably, not the best day in your kid's life, but I'm here to support you. And then we're all going to get through it together. So really excited to be continuing in this role. And I just have to say, Dr. Donnelly and I have had I think a really nice transition in and have really, I don't know, would you say it, Dr. Donnelly? I've really enjoyed working with you so far in your new role for the last 8 weeks or so.
It has been fun. Like, I know that sounds, one thing that we have found talking to tons of other people across all different communities is that this has been an incredibly difficult beginning to the school year for every single community. We were talking just as a matter of normal business with our attorney yesterday, and he said it has been the worst year of his 26 years. That he's ever seen. So for anyone that's feeling that it's been a bit of a rocky start, I take a little bit of solace that we're definitely not alone in that, but those challenges have been a lot of fun in their own ways to try to tackle and figure out how to collaboratively problem solve. So yeah, it's been fun.
So why did this gentleman, Paula, say that it was the most difficult year he's ever seen?
I don't think anyone has a good answer to that yet. Like, it would be really interesting for, probably a sociologist at some point to do some kind of postmortem of the start to the school year. But I think the working hypothesis from everybody that I've spoken to is that I think we'd all hoped that this year would just go back to normal. And that it would feel more normal. And while lots of things like routine wise are more normal or have become the new normal, I think we have forgotten that it's been 2 years of not like I think less about the academic losses. And I, hesitate to call them losses. I think really the social and emotional impact of trying to kind of recoup everything has really been a challenge for, for the kids and certainly for, many of the adults as well. That's kind of the best theory we have right now. So we'll see. As Emily said, like, it's been interesting and fun to work this year, and I'm really excited about the group that's here and our ability to work together. And really tackle the things that we need to and make sure that we're prioritizing the right things that we need to.
And we just keep forward. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just think that Paula and the team chairs, I think when kids are struggling, they are the faces that you want to see at the table because they're all there to support your kids and your family. And I think that they've all managed to keep that kind of at the forefront of their minds, despite some of the other stuff that's going around, which has enabled them to be positive and make changes within the school to make sure that your kids are taken care of. And I think to Paula's point, our kids didn't really lose much academically, right? Like, our kids are doing very well academically. We did very well during the pandemic, but social emotionally, some of our kids have come back they're really hurting and in need of extra support. And these are the faces that you want kind of at that table advocating for your kid in the school.
Yeah, and it's not just our problem. I mean, this is a nationwide phenomenon that's and probably universal. It's happening everywhere, unfortunately. So,
yeah, even before the pandemic, the standard, the baseline understanding was that 1 in 5 kids across the country fit the criteria for an emotional disability. If you imagine 20% of kids with COVID or 20% of kids with chickenpox, we would be freaking out. And we weren't necessarily doing that before the pandemic. Now we are a little bit more around some of those issues, but I definitely think that it's, something that we, as a department want to make sure that we're tackling and supporting, not just students that have an IEP or students identified with a disability, but all kids. Because our kids don't go to school in a vacuum. They're not on an island. So,
right. And if anything good can be said about this, it's the fact that I think that any school district you talk to from now until whenever, social emotional awareness and social emotional programs are going to be intrinsically a part of what learning is all about, teaching and learning is all about going forward. Because we're social creatures and we've learned what happens when we're in isolation. So I think that that's the good thing, that it will become part of every school district's culture, not just be given a tip of the hat to every once in a while. I think it'll just be there. Yeah.
And not to single him out, but Mr. Beachwood, who is one of our therapeutic support teachers, is here. You know, and it's really great to have for kids to come back to familiar faces and to be able to come back to staff that are really strong and being able to provide, you know, what they need across the course of the day. So we're lucky to have him amongst many other talented folks in the district.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So-
Jessica.
So does anybody in the who's been listening to us and who's heard the team chairs and has heard Paula and Emily, are there any questions out there that you'd like to ask? Don't be shy.
And if you want, you can put it in the chat if you don't feel comfortable speaking.
And at any point, like, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to throw Emily out there too, or any of us, like, if you have questions or concerns that come up along the way. You know, we want to be accessible. We want to be partners with you guys in all of this. So even if things come up after this, feel free to reach out at any point.
Thank you. So while we're waiting to see if anybody else has a question that they are willing to pose here, can I put you on the spot a little bit, Paula, and ask a question that we haven't pre-rehearsed or anything? Because you have your priorities too, in addition to just looking at the global picture. Could you share with us what a few of your priorities are going to be for this year?
Yeah, I think it feels like they shift, you know, the hierarchy of them shifts a little bit every single day, but I think that certainly continuing to put a higher priority and a lot of focus on more inclusive practices. So, you know, ensuring that we're, you know, building up those areas of co-teaching where we have, you know, good space and good teams that are together to do that. You know, it's not simply just putting two teachers together in a room and having them share the workload. You know, the research, you know, people that do co-teaching for a living consider it to be a marriage, and, you know, it's an arranged marriage sometimes. So those are always a little bit, you know, those are interesting, but I think we want to continue to try to be supportive of those and let people develop those relationships. That is certainly a priority of ours. I would say another, you know, the other really high priority for us is, as district-wide, we're rolling out the multi-tiered system of support that will, you know, support all kids. I think we want to make sure that as a department, we're really supporting that work, because for a long time, I think special education has been, you know, kind of the only game in town for, you know, students that might be struggling. So I think to make sure that we are aligning, you know, some of the work that we do with what will happen through the, you know, the Office of Teaching and Learning, to make sure that we're, you know, not just working collaboratively, but really aligning the work that we're doing with supporting what they need to do. You know, I think that, you know, Dr. Oxford last year spent a lot of, and, you know, other folks spent a lot of time on the DCAP. So, you know, we all feel really comfortable with implementing a DCAP or recommending things in the DCAP, but we know that that's new to a lot of teachers and even other administrators as well. So we want to make sure that we're supporting them with all of those implementations. I think those are probably the two biggest areas right now. Obviously, social emotional learning is going to be a huge piece of that. And I think also making sure that, also saying all of that, being conscious of initiative fatigue. You know, there's a lot that's going on, and I think what can be really challenging is folks feeling like we're throwing a lot out there and it feeling disjointed. So a lot of the work will be making sure that, you know, people all understand, and that we know that this is all really one big thing to support kids, and not all of these disparate or discrete things that aren't actually operating together.
Yeah, I think that's really important, not to overload people with too many things at once. And if I could just say one thing about teaching and learning. Nan wanted to be here tonight, but she's at the Red Sox game, folks. So she sends her best to everybody. But she's at the Red Sox game. And I know John was hoping to come too, but he's a little bit under the weather. So they're with us in spirit. And John's not having such a good time of it, but I hope Nan is. So
I don't think so. It's
no,
not.
they're losing. Are they losing?
No, I came
Oh,
upstairs,
okay.
they were-
Oh, okay. Forget that I said that, but that's where she is. If she's crying over her peanuts, I don't know.
There was a question that came in the chat. Can you please explain
Yeah.
the DCAP?
The DCAP, yes. So DCAP stands for District Curriculum Accommodations Plan. And what that is a document that embeds universal accommodations that any student can access. It isn't, they don't need an IEP, they don't need a 504, they don't even need to be identified with a disability. A lot of it, we believe is good teaching practice. They're things that we as special educators and related service providers have, always done either consciously or subconsciously, but it's something to ensure that all students' needs are being met, just through making adjustments to teaching practices, to, the way that we're providing assessments, is kind of the short answer to that.
Are there other questions?
But I can I'm not sure if it's posted on the website yet. We do have a new website. Some things are up, some things are not, but if it's not there, it's a document I can certainly share with everybody, just so that you have an understanding of what that means.
That would be great. Are there other people in the chat, Jen, with questions? Jen? She didn't hear me.
No, there's nothing else in the chat.
No, I'm muted. I'm talking.
Oh, okay. Well, I have another
No,
question.
there's no other direct questions yet.
Would you mind if I asked you another question, Paula?
Not.
Okay. We've been chatting. We've met before, the three of us, you, me, and Jen. But just for the record, if you've thought about it at all with everything else that's on your plate, what kinds of events or programs, or even just discussions and Q&A, could you envision, or would you want to have with SEPAC as a partner?
Yeah, we've definitely talked a lot about this. I've talked with other folks as well. A couple of things that I would like to work with this group on is, not just the basic rights around, what it means when the rights that you and a child have when you're identified with a disability, but I think a deeper education of the special education process and what an IEP is, like understanding that as a document. I think that it's something that we as special educators speak as a second language, and it's new and intimidating to a lot of parents. And a lot of the things within that change as students age. So I think that's something that I would certainly like to do, especially as we're seeing a lot of our younger kiddos, struggling, and having a lot more referrals at that age. That's one thing that I would target. Another at the completely other end of the spectrum is disabilities accommodations and how that relates to what might be available for students at colleges or universities. I think there's not a deep understanding of that. That's certainly something that I would want to work on. And Scott Solberg and I have had a couple of conversations about that. That's something that I feel like we would work really closely with the high school guidance counselors on, so that we're sending a shared message to all families. I think those are two things that I would certainly want to tackle. I know that there was a lot of positive feedback around some of the speakers that came last year. Another piece to that is, I think oftentimes what happens is that, the Student Services Department and SEPAC will work collaboratively for something, bring in a really fabulous speaker, and oftentimes the audience is already the choir and the converted. So, I would like to work with you guys on how we bring some of those things to a bigger audience, or share some of those messages, especially around like inclusivity and disability rights, sharing that out more broadly to people that might not be living this every single day.
I think that last idea is fabulous. Go ahead. What were you
Yeah.
gonna say?
So there is another question in the chat. How will missed IEP goals from last year be addressed?
I think that would really be a conversation for, you and your child's team, to assess, what might have been missed. By and large, a lot of the conversations around services would have been, some of those conversations would have been had last year. I think if, you feel that your child hasn't made progress, then it's something that we would want to bring to a team meeting, collect some data, look at where they are, and then see what needs to be done going forward. I think is a really short, super overgeneralized answer to that. But if you have specific questions about like your child and your child's needs, reach out to me or the team chair so that we can address those more directly, so that we're not sharing any confidential information in this forum.
Great, thank you. And then there was another question regarding DCAP. Who would you contact in regard to implementing accommodations in DCAP?
So because DCAP is, a whole school, whole district thing, I would definitely recommend connecting with your child's teacher or the teacher in that class where you feel they may need an accommodation. If you need the support of, any of the school counselors or the principal with that, they would probably be the first, your first points of contact, but that's something that we as a department can support as well.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to say in general, if someone doesn't want to message the entire group, feel free to message me directly and I will happily ask your question anonymously. And Jen Eaton, you have your hand up.
Oh yeah, hi. I just had a question. I know you were talking about the SEL work in the beginning, and I just was asked, like, my question, it might not be completely, I guess, special ed related, although more so, I think, towards our kids on an IEP, but I feel like, it's such a buzzword, in the district and, in, I guess, the world in general, but so again, this might not be directly related to something like you can answer, but I feel like especially the kids in the middle, like, the vets village kids in particular, I don't know how to say this quite perfectly, but I feel like they've been sort of forgotten. So my question is, like, what is the plan for them? Like, what are we specifically doing for them in a sense? I feel like they're the kids that have sort of suffered through this pandemic the most, sorry, I get a little emotional thinking about it, but I feel like they're the ones that are suffering in silence right now and are having the hardest time, and that people are kind of forgetting about them, but yet they're the ones that are really barely making it through at this point. And especially our kids that have anxiety, they're just kind of making it through. So I know that a lot of our kids on an IEP have, things written into their IEPs to help with that, but I just don't know that it's quite enough. And even our kids not on an IEP, especially at, the village level or even younger, they're struggling, and I don't really see a lot of interventions being done. And I'm worried about them. Like, I'm hearing things on the soccer field, I'm hearing other parents, and I just feel like these kids aren't okay. And I don't know what we're doing as a district, as a town, to mitigate that. So I guess, besides a survey that went out to our middle school kids last year, I haven't really seen a lot of action. There's a lot of talk, but not action. So I guess, I don't know if it's a question, it's a statement, but I'm concerned. These kids have been behind screens for a year. They don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know how to deal with their anxiety, their emotions. I'm worried for them.
Yeah, no, I certainly hear that. I think that's something that we all certainly recognize as well. I wish that I had a more specific answer to say like, this is something like, this is exactly what we're doing. And this is the exact timeline in which we're rolling this out. I know that it's something that we're not unaware of. I know that there are certainly things that we're looking at trying. And ultimately, this is a much more long range thing, but ultimately, I don't want SEL to feel like it's this standalone block within a day that we make sure that we're doing every single day. What we want is for it to be embedded across everything that students are doing all day long. So I hope that the not hearing that, oh, this is a program that we're going to be using for SEL, or this is a curriculum that we're implementing, doesn't make it feel that we're not being more attuned to it. But what we do want to have are, practices within the classroom, supports that are in the classroom that can help, us work with kids that may be struggling. I think for Village, Dr. Miko, the new assistant principal, is somebody that, has done a lot of work around mindfulness. And she's really, really has a deep understanding that it's something that you don't just, carve out a little bit of time in the, in one part of the day to do or put it in the schedule. She's really working with staff to embed a lot of those practices across the day, like to do things in morning meetings, those kinds of check-ins and strategies and things like that. It's a really small thing, but those are the kinds of things that I hope that we're doing in all of the classrooms and all of our buildings to try to better support kids during the day. There's a fabulous counselors, at Village and Vets and really across all of our buildings that are, running all day long to support teachers and kids. I obviously it's a challenge maybe that ensuring that we're getting ahead of those kids that might be in a crisis in that moment and making sure that we're supporting everybody as well. But it's certainly something that we understand, something that we do need to continue to do more about. I think certainly one thing that we want to do is look at some of the work that the SEL subcommittee, the SEL committee did last year, and take that data that we have and do something actionable with it. It's absolutely something that we need to do. It's something that we need to make a priority. The DCAP, for what it's worth, does have some of those like social and emotional accommodations that we can make and that we should be making for all students. But yeah, there's no doubt that there's more that we definitely need to do.
And if I can add one thing there, Paula, I think there's one thing, Jennifer, when you think about like holistically, like what are we doing proactively and what can we roll out? But social emotional functioning is so individualized and needs are so unique to students that it is really important for any parent in the community who is having concerns to be directly in touch with the counselors within their building. And then certainly as we start to see trends, we can proactively target small groups and that will help drive us to be more effective and efficient in the solutions that we put into place. I think there is a lot, nationally that's going to say, oh, SEL as this holistic piece, but there are entire curriculums in which, a particular chapter, a particular skill might be more relevant to our community than something else. And so I would encourage that open dialogue at the school level to be very concrete about what we're seeing and the needs so that we can target and align those responses to be at the level of intervention that an individual may need. And not just expect them to get something, by happenstance of a school-wide initiative. And so just really do encourage that dialogue, especially if there are concerns.
And I have another question in the chat. Other districts have a bridge program where students with anxiety or other social emotional issues go for academic and therapeutic support for 1 to 2 blocks per day. I don't know if we have a similar program. Does something like this exist? And not necessarily a sub-separate program. Kids are in regular ed often, regular ed classes, but have IEP for bridge support.
So the high school does have what's called the Bright program, which is designed for students that it's not exactly, you know, what's being asked and what's described there, but the Bright program is designed for students that may have had an extended absence from school, you know, either from a hospitalization for, you know, mental or emotional health, or even something physical, you know, like kids that may have missed time with a concussion or something along those lines, that's supported by an academic tutor, teacher, and a counselor to help ease them back into their regular, you know, high school day, their high school schedule. It's highly individualized. Kids take the time that they need. You know, there's progress monitoring, communication with families and providers. So that kind of thing does exist at the high school. In terms of there being like some sort of like resource space, I don't want to say a resource room, but some sort of space where kids might be able to, you know, regroup, whether academically or socially and emotionally. We don't have, you know, I don't think any of the buildings have something that's specifically for that, that's open to everybody. You know, certainly we want kids to feel like they have a person in the building that is their safe space, in a place that they feel comfortable going if they're really having a difficult time. But a standalone place like that that's designated in each building does not exist as that's described right now. But I do think that identifying more universal supports for kids that are struggling, you know, that aren't necessarily generated through an IEP or dictated by special education services, is something that we could definitely take a look at doing. I know that physical space is at a premium in all of the buildings, even our brand new building already. But it's not, you know, I think if it's an identified need, it's something that we need to try to be creative and collaborative in finding a way to implement.
You know, if I may, I think it's really terrific that people are so conscious of this. And I think listening to what Meredith just said a few minutes ago. So if there's if we're culturally much more aware of this and are going to pay attention to it, whether we want to call it an initiative or just as part of our general district culture, and then layering that with individualization the minute that it's needed, so that before things get out of hand, I think that's the kind of space emotionally that we all want to be in. So I just want to applaud the efforts that are being made in that direction. Do we have any other questions, Jen?
There's none directly to me. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Are parents informed when a child is not getting their weekly services, or other than having to ask our child on a daily basis? I've heard services are missed during MCAS and assessment times. Are parents informed when this will occur? When should a parent expect the services listed on IEP when should a parent expect the services listed on an IEP begin to start at the beginning of the school year?
So there's a few different things that I'm going to try to pull out of there a little bit. So services are, you know, students are eligible and entitled to their services as soon as an IEP is accepted. You know, at the beginning of the school year, it does take a little bit of time to get scheduling, you know, nailed down. There's not a lot of time for teachers before the year starts. And this year was especially disjointed because it was like the third week of September before we had 5 whole days in a week in the building. So there is some, you know, the beginning of the year does sometimes take some time. if a teacher might be absent for a day, it's not something that we necessarily notify parents of, that a student might have missed a service that day. Teachers or providers, will do their best to try to make up anything that's missed, but there's no guarantee that we're necessarily able to do that. When there are longer term absences, or when we can expect longer term gaps in service, yes, we should absolutely be more proactive in reaching out to parents and letting them know that there may be a gap in the services. If that happens, and it's not like a school-wide thing, like during MCAS, when things may change, that's not a time that we're necessarily required to provide makeup services, because it's everybody, it's across the building. And there just is not time within the day to be able to do that. Like, if we're being realistic, because the other thing that we can't do is remove kids from other curriculum areas to provide them services. Like we shouldn't be taking kids out of specials and unified arts. At the high school, we can't take them out of electives to provide special education services. So to be blunt, the scheduling piece is really challenging. I've joked in meetings before, the only thing that really works is that Hermione Granger time turner from Harry Potter. Like, it's really the only way for a kid to not miss out on anything across the course of their day. But when there would be an unanticipated gap in services, yes, we should be more proactive in notifying families when that happens. It's something I have not done a great job of this year, that I will make sure that I do better with that going forward. But yeah, if a teacher is absent, if a teacher is out sick for a day and is back the next day, it's not something that we typically notify families of. And it's not something that is considered, we're not considered to be out of compliance if, a teacher is out sick.
Okay. Any other questions that we have? No?
That's it. I was going to say, Merle, can you check your direct messages too, to make sure
I don't think
there weren't any directed to you specifically?
No.
No. Okay.
Nobody else? Can I just say, well, first of all, on behalf of all of us here, I thank you for coming, everybody who's come tonight. And I think that this has been a terrific session. And I want to thank Paula and all of her team, every single person here. It's been really wonderful to see your faces and to listen to you. And I don't know about how you all feel, but from where I'm sitting and listening and watching, I think that this has been a major success, and it's really the way forward. What we plan to do as a SEPAC, just to share a little bit with you, is to have more of these kinds of board meetings where we really have parents come and just talk or ask questions or just say what's on your mind. Because even if Paula and her team aren't at every single board meeting, we don't expect that, but we certainly can facilitate the communication. And we can certainly just talk directly to each other as parents and as community members to see, what we should be talking about here, what's really important to everybody, what's top of your mind. Because, the world is vast and there are lots of topics, and they're not all things that are maybe the most important thing to you. So please continue to come to our meetings and watch for the promotions, because we are going to invite parents to come on a regular basis just to sit and talk and share. Not necessarily to come up with solutions, but certainly to know what your questions are and what your concerns are, so that we can help from our vantage point in getting answers for you. But I thank you. This has really been a wonderful session. I want to thank Paula and everybody else who's taken time out of their busy day to be here with us at night. I know that's hard. You all have kids and lives of your own. So thank you. Jen, did you want to say anything?
No, I just echo what Merle said. I realize now that Merle and I really didn't introduce ourselves, but Merle and I are the co-chairs of the CPAC board.
There you go.
Yeah. yeah, we would love to have more participation. We'd love to hear from you too. If there's any topics in particular that you would like to hear about this year, feel free to email us or put them in the chat now, or because we want to make sure that we're bringing relevant information to the parents, and we want to, as Paula said earlier, expand our reach and get more parents involved. So.
And just so you know, this is a plug for our website, which Meredith Cohen, who's here, and Jen Eaton, they're our social media people. They man the website. But if you want to contact us, if you have questions that occur to you, even about tonight's meeting, as you go home, just look for the contact page. All our emails are listed there, and just shoot us an email and we'll get it to Paula, and we'll get answers for you. We are also planning, I see Jeff's been here. We will be sending out a survey. Don't pin us to a time yet, but soon, where we're going to be asking you for some of the same information that we're asking for now. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear about? What's on your mind? So that we can structure our meetings for the rest of the year with those at the forefront. So thanks again. This has really been super.
And I think just also to reiterate what Paula said earlier, if there is an issue in particular, start with the classroom teacher first. And if you come up against a wall there, reach out to your team chair. And if that isn't working, then certainly reach out to Paula. So did I say that right, Paula? The correct order.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. The classroom teacher is always the best first stop, because there's definitely times where I've been asked questions that might be like more classroom routine, day-to-day oriented, and I've got to run around to the teacher and find the answers. So oftentimes it's quickest to just ask that person. But I would also put in a plug for any of you parents that are on here. Merle and Jen have been like just fabulous to work with. Like, if you have questions about anything that's happening for, within the schools, and don't necessarily feel comfortable approaching any of us, I'm gonna volunteer them to be really great sounding boards and advocates that will certainly, filter back to us, what the need is without, excess or favor or, sugarcoating of it in any way, shape, or form. They're fabulous community members that I can't thank enough for their support, getting this year up and running.
So can we say ditto? I mean, even though the year might have been rocky, but our relationship has started off fabulous. So it's really great. It's wonderful to work with Paula and Emily and the whole team, really. So we're here to help you guys anytime you need us. Everybody's here. Anything else anybody wants to say or add? Okay, then we'll say goodnight. We look forward to another session, in the not too distant future. We'll
Definitely.
thank you so much, folks, for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all very much. Good to see you.
Good to see you.